I used to be one of those guys when I was like 20, 21. I would always want to be getting married. Like, I was always looking for the one, and I thought if I, at 21, I was happy to find the one and to settle down and have kids. And it was very interesting because I got my heart really, really broken, and always pursuing women, and I would always put the woman first, and I was always the nice guy, and always get my heart trampled on, and they would cheat on me, or they would treat me like shit and all that kind of stuff. And there was a book that came into my life round about when I met Ronnie, actually. I don't know if it came from you or someone else, but somebody sent me this book, and they gave me this book. It was I think it's called David Data, or David Data? Data. The Way of the Superior Man. Who's read that book? Okay. So, this is not part of my talk, but since we're talking Secret Men's book, I reckon this book is the Bible for men. Because there was a particular chapter in that book that absolutely changed my entire life. It changed my relationship with myself. It changed my relationship with women. It changed my relationship with money and in business. And it was a particular statement that really impacted me. It said something along the lines that women are not interested in you. They will not be interested in you if they know that you put them first. And I was like, but that's what I've been doing. I've always been putting the woman first. I've always, checking with them, and I'm the nice guy, and, what do you want to do, honey? Well, we'll do whatever you want, all that kind of stuff. And it continued to say that women are interested in a man, it wasn't exactly these words, in a man who puts his purpose before the woman. That made a huge impact in my life. And when I began to put my purpose before the woman, I can't tell you how many women. And look, I wasn't always as handsome as I am today, right? I mean, there's a few people I've known from before, like Ronnie here. I used to be 25 kilos heavier, have this big moon head, and I wasn't the best looking guy, okay? But when I started to put my purpose before the woman, I started to get a lot of good looking women into my life, and a lot of fulfilling relationships. It's not just about getting good looking women. I actually had fulfilling relationships. I would find that the woman would trust me more. And what I read in that book was that the woman is looking for a man that puts his purpose first, because unconsciously, or maybe we'll talk about feminine energy here, maybe Tom's going to be talking about that later on, but they know that a man that puts the purpose first is a man that can produce with them, a man that can create a family, and it's almost like they can trust that man. So it really impacted my life a lot, and this is from that moment I started to shift everything and make everything about my purpose. My purpose came first, and today that's what I do. Today my purpose comes first. I am single, okay? So I don't know if that still works, but the thing is, I'll be honest. I'm single, but very damn happy, okay? I mean, at this stage of my life, I'm in a different city every single weekend. So, I don't want to say how many relationships I have because they're filming this and the women will watch it later. But I'm very happy, and I'm very purposefully driven in my life. And what I want to talk to you about is a little bit about purpose and how your intuition plays a role in your purpose. I think the greatest mistake that I've made in pursuing my purpose is, and look, some of the things I want to say to you tonight would not be the typical things you're going to hear from a typical presenter. I'm not your typical presenter, or I'm not here to, say the typical things. I'm here to just tell you how it is and how I live, and it may resonate with you or you may push some buttons, okay? But one of the things that I found in pursuing my purpose is the biggest mistake I made was I thought purpose was in what I did. When I began to connect more with my intuition, and your intuition is your inner tuition. everything that I'm sharing about, you already know. Okay, your intuition already knows. It's not new. Okay, and there's parts of what I'm going to be sharing. There's parts of your body, there's parts of your cells, your energy will go, I know this. I know it, and it feels like I've always known it. So the biggest mistake was that I thought purpose was in what I did. It was maybe in what I have, but it wasn't. Purpose was in who we are being. You know, people go, oh, you got to do what you love to do, you got to do what you love to do, but it's not what you do that you love, it's who you're being when you do that. When I'm speaking to you right now, it's not the speaking that I love, it's the space that I connect to, it's who I'm being when I'm doing this. So purpose is not found in what you do, it's found in who you are. This is the biggest thing that I realized in the path of, let's call it the path of self-realization, the path of truth. So what I want to talk to you a little bit about is I don't want to talk to you about how to use your intuition, because that's boring. Why? Because you probably won't be able to understand it. Like you see, the thing about intuition is that you can't teach it. You know, it's not a learnable thing. Okay, because it comes from a part of you that is not logical. Okay, it comes from a part of you that is formless. Okay, so the moment I start teaching you about intuition, you understand it, but you won't be able to use it. Because there's a big difference between knowing your intuition and actually being able to use it. So one of the biggest ways that I have brought more purpose into my life is having the ability to follow my intuition. The biggest reasons why people cannot follow their intuition is because the intuition has zero, nil, nada logic into it. It requires no logical explanation. It relies on no logic. That's why they say women are more intuitive. This is not true. Okay, man or women have both masculine and feminine energy. That's in fact what makes us whole and complete, when you embrace your feminine and masculine energy. But women tend to use more of their intuition because they tend to use more of their feelings. I remember sitting down in Bondi Beach, and I'm originally from Bondi, and I'm sitting down in this coffee shop, and these two women behind me were having this conversation. And the reason I started to eavesdrop was because I heard one of them say the word intuition. So I'm not usually the kind that sits there eavesdrop, but in this case I started listening and going, what are they talking about? And this one lady was telling her friend about this huge life-changing decision that she was making. I don't know what the story was because I got involved halfway through it. I wasn't sure exactly what they were talking about, but all I knew, it was a huge impact. I mean, I think she had tears in her eyes, and her friend was like playing devil's advocate and goes, are you sure you want to do this? I don't know if this is the best thing. It's very risky. And their friend's going, yeah, I just know I got to do it. I just know I got to do it. You know what her friend said? How do you know? And she says, I don't know, but I just know. How many times have you said that? How many times have you said, I don't know, but I just know something? Men, hello? Yeah, okay, you do. Sometimes in business, you use a gut feel, and you're like, I know we've got to do this. I know. And maybe your business partner or somebody goes, how do you know that? I don't know, I just know. What you're saying is, I have no logical explanation. I have no logical reason of why I should follow this intuitive feeling. But I just know because I have a feeling of a knowing of to do it. Because your intuition expresses itself through a feeling of a knowing. Does that make sense? So the first thing I wanted to say about intuition is that it is one of the biggest reasons people don't follow it is because it requires logic. People require logic, I should say. People require logical reasons of why I should follow my intuition. But there's no logic in love, is there? You know, I mean, sure, you may attach a logical reason. Well, you know, she's hot, you know, she's probably going to look after me, she's younger, or whatever. You may find a logical reason, okay? But there's no logic in love. And one of the things about love is that love is something in life that finds you. You don't find it. Love is something that shows up in your life. And that's the same thing about intuition. So your intuition is not something that you find, it's something that finds you. I want to give you plenty of references of this. I want to give you plenty of examples of this. In fact, you know, me coming up here right now to talk to you, a lot of the times, you know, Eloise was telling you what I'm going to say, but a lot of the times I don't know what I'm going to say, because what I choose to do is to get up here and speak to you intuitively. Now, one of the things about intuition is that your intuition takes place, or is the voice of the present moment. It lives in this moment. It doesn't live in the past, it doesn't live in the future. So the moment you take your thoughts and your attention into the past, or you take your attention and your thoughts into the future, you're now disconnected from your intuition. Your intuition's still there, but you're not there. Do you understand? Because you're no longer in the present moment. So one of the things that I choose to do when I talk is speak to you intuitively. So what that means is to be able to get up here and share with you insights and from the present moment. So here's the thing. Here's the thing about intuition. Whatever city I'm actually speaking in around the world, I ask this one question. And I always get the same answer. And the question is, how do you plan or script the present moment? And you know what the answer I get is? That. Just silence. How can you plan the present moment?
But you can't.
You can't.
You do it.
You can't. You can't plan the present. You can be open. You can be prepared. You can be open to the present moment. You can be in the present moment. You can't plan it. So one of the things about using your intuition is that, I mean, sure, there is still a plan unfolding through you. And again, one of the other reasons for you to be able to use your intuition, I mean, we're talking about to a lot of guys here right now, is because your creativity, your ideas, your solutions come from the intuition. But it all comes from this present moment. And the thing is you can't actually plan it. Let me give you, oh, thanks, Ronnie. Let me give you an example. One of the reasons it's important to be able to follow our intuition, besides purpose, is that when you are following your intuition, things become effortless. Okay, who's ever experienced that? When things just become effortless. Effortless doesn't mean it's easy. You know, whenever I go, you know, things become effortless, they think, oh, what's easy? No, effortless means within you, within your soul, within your spirit, there is an effortless feeling. You know, your intuition or your, let's call it flow. The flow, we've all heard the term the flow. I'm a sporting nut, so I like to refer to sport quite a bit. In sporting in terminology, they call it the zone. Okay, we all know what I'm talking about, yeah? Yep. The zone. I love guys. There's no audience participation as well. The women are like, yeah, yeah. The thing about the flow or the zone, okay, when you're actually saying somebody is in the flow or in the zone, what are you actually saying? You're saying someone is in the present. Someone is in the now. Does that make sense? So things become effortless. Now, you may love, for example, your flow may be to climb Mount Everest. That's what feels true for you. That's what you have a love for. But climbing Mount Everest does not mean it's going to be easy. Does not mean it's going to be tedious. It does not mean there's no risk involved. Does not mean you're not going to break a limb. Or, in fact, you may even die. But what it means is that when you are climbing Mount Everest, there is an effortless experience within you. So please don't mistake what I'm saying about when I'm saying it's effortless. It doesn't mean it's easy. Okay? It means it's effortless for you, inside of you. Your soul is at rest. Your soul is at peace. Your soul is open. It's inspired. So, you know, it is very important to be able to follow your intuition, because the act of following your intuition is what creates the flow. You know, when a football player is playing out in the football field. Anyone know Benji Marshall? Okay, Benji Marshall, one of the greatest football players. And this guy, he does these crazy moves and these crazy flick passes and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, he goes away from the plan. Can you see what I'm saying? The football team have a team plan. But in many cases, when Benji Marshall is in his flow, it's when he's gone, I'm meant to pass the ball on the right, but I'm not going to go that way because I feel instinctively that there is an opportunity on the left, and he flicks the ball on the left and knowing that the player is going to be there. Can you see what I'm saying? It's not gone to plan. I know we're sitting here and we're men and probably a lot of us are in business, and the business plan is very important. Okay? I'm not saying it's not important. The plan is important. But if you want the plan to come from your creative source, if you want it to come effortlessly, in other words, for the plan to unfold within you, it does not take you planning. It takes you being in the present moment and feeling. It's not a thinking process. It's a feeling process. Let me share with you a story. Who here has ever experienced beginner's luck? Put your hand up if you've ever experienced beginner's luck. All right, there's quite a lot of you who have experienced beginner's luck. I want to share with you my story of beginner's luck because it'll give you some reference points. And it was the very first time I ever played golf. I got a phone call from a friend of mine. Who plays golf here? Come on, we're men. All right. I got a phone call from a friend of mine. He goes, Amir, you got to come play golf with us. You know, all the boys, we get together, we play, and the only person who's missing is you. And I said, look, you know, I appreciate your call, but, you know, golf, you know, it's not my thing. And he continues to pursue me, and he's like, yeah, come on, we're going to play again this weekend. Are you sure you don't want to come? And I said, look, man, I really appreciate it, but it's not my thing, golf, but thanks for the offer anyway. And he goes, look, I really know you're going to love this. And he kept pushing me. So I said, how do you know I'm going to really love this? He goes, I don't know, it's just a great thing. It's like, you get out there, it's a real spiritual experience. And right about there, I was on my journey of being, you know, looking for all the different spiritual experience. Someone would tell me, smoke this, it'll give you a spiritual experience. Okay, oh, cool. Drink this, it'll give you a spiritual experience. Great, you know. So I was looking for the next spiritual experience. And so I said, fantastic, you know, spiritual experience. I'm down for a spiritual experience. I said, but how's it a spiritual experience? And he's like, oh, you know, you're out in the field. Golf is like life. You know, the harder you try to hit the ball, the worse it does. And, you know, even Deepak Chopra's written a book about golf. And I was like, Deepak, you wrote a book about golf and spirituality? Well, you know, all right, I'm down for this. So he goes, look, before we go out to the range, he plays a competition at this club that he wanted to take me out. And he goes, I don't want you to embarrass yourself. I don't want you to embarrass me. So why don't we go take some practice shots? Practice shots. I went, fantastic, let's go do that. So he takes me out to a range. And we rent out 100 balls, okay? Gets the bucket of 100 balls. And, you know, I've got no references about golf. Do you understand? The only references I have is I know you use this stick and you hit the ball, it's meant to go forward. And I've seen that on TV. But I've got no idea. I don't have a plan about it. I have no agenda. I have nothing to prove to him. I have nothing to prove to myself. The only feeling, if I could describe the feeling, was I showed up completely open. No goals, no plan, no how. Does that make sense? Because I've got no references, so I've got no choice but just to show up. So he gives me a ball and he goes, look, here's the ball. I'm going to put the ball down. Why don't you just take some shots and then I can see where you're at and then I can critique you. I go, fantastic, that's great. You know, give me the bat. He goes, it's not a bat, it's a club. Okay, right, give me the club. So he gives me this club and I line myself up in front of this ball, and I just remember positioning myself there, and like I said, just being completely open. I have no target. I don't know how far the ball is meant to go. I have no plan of, you know, hit the ball this way or hit the ball that way because I've got no references. So the only opportunity I had was to be completely open. So I take a swing and I hit this ball and it goes straight, it goes good distance. And you know, for those who play golf, you know when you're connected with the ball, connected with the ball. And all I felt afterward was, this is fun. You know, when you're doing something that's true for you, when you're in the moment, it's always fun. Love's energy is fun loving. So it was like, yeah, this is fun. This is awesome. And he kind of looked at me and went, do it again. So I went again, lined myself up, hit this ball, it went straight, it went great distance. He looks at me again and goes, do it again. And again, I'm just feeling this is fun. This is a real fun thing. And I'm thinking, maybe I'm going to do more of this. And those are the only thoughts I'm having. But every time I'm taking another shot, I'm not thinking about the shot. There's no thinking process. It's just a feeling process. Why is there no thinking process? Because I'm not thinking about how I'm going to hit this ball. I'm not thinking about how far I should be going. Can you see what I'm saying? So it allows me just to be in my feelings. Take the next shot. It goes even further. It goes great distance. And I'm just thinking, yeah, I'm really enjoying this. And he looked at me and goes, mate, you had me on. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you've played before. I said, no, mate, I've never played. This is the very first time I've ever swung a club. And he looks at me and goes, man, you're pretty good. Do it again. So he puts the next ball down. By the time I get to the next shot, I suddenly had, where before I had no thoughts except for the thoughts of the present moment, I had 1,001 different thoughts rush into my mind. I started to think to myself, oh my God, I wasn't even trying before. He plays professional. He thinks I'm really good. Maybe this is my next purpose in life. Maybe I'm the next Tiger Woods. I wasn't trying. Let me show you what I can really do. Like all these thoughts came into my head then. And then I noticed my whole demeanor changed. Where before I would just rock up, there's no thought about it. I'm just taking these shots. Now I'm starting to take my time. I'm starting to think about the shot. I'm noticing that my grip is becoming tighter. I'm noticing that I'm doing these ones. And then I'm noticing, well, last time I got it that far, I'm going to get it even further. So I created a goal around it. Does that make sense? Oh, the ball's still sitting there. And I go, oh, no, it's just bad luck. Give me another shot. He goes, nah, that wasn't bad luck. You just experienced beginner's luck. I go, nah, I'll have another shot. Had another shot, the ball just rolls around. Had another shot, the ball slices the right. I couldn't get the shot again. The first 3 shots were amazing shots, and I had 100 balls there. The next 97 balls all just went along the ground. Every single one of them. And I tried harder, and I tried to focus more. The reason you try to focus is because you're not focused. The reason you try to be present is because you're not present. But if you connect to your intuition, to your natural essence, you notice that you already are present. The reason you need to become present is because you're living in here. And what does it mean to be living in here? Always controlling. Those people who are always looking to control things are those people who are most out of control in here. There's no trust with themselves, not with the world, but within themselves. And they look to control the plan. I mean, those who are... I'm not here to say don't plan, okay? I'm here to say I don't plan. I have no problem in saying that. I run a company. I run a successful company in America and Australia, and there's no business plan. It makes my accountant nervous, but I have no problem with it. No, in fact, every business I've ever done never had a business plan. How often does your plan go to plan?
Never.
Hardly ever. You're continuously, you move forward, you show up, and you notice this plan, and then you're continuously changing. You're continuously changing the plan. You know which part of you needs to see the plan? Ronnie once told me a story. And it was the story of a car. Well, he said a plane. I'm going to change the story a little bit. A car. When you're driving at night time in the... it's funny, when I'm starting to talk about you, I started speaking South African accent for a second. When you're driving at night time... Hey? I don't understand. Ah, okay. When... There is a part of you that is interested in the plan, and it's only interested in the plan. And it's the part of you that has a lack of connection with your intuition. The part of you that lacks a connection with yourself would look to gain connection with the plan because it has no trust in who you are. In other words, it doesn't know who you are. Because if you knew who you truly were, your natural state would be in presence. Your natural state would be one of trust, of safeness. And because we feel unsafe, we are continuously looking to find safeness or safety in the plan. Because the plan makes us feel safe. The financial plan makes us feel safe. Again, I'm not saying don't have a financial plan. But if that's what makes you safe, that is what controls you. And that is what takes you away from your creativity. That is what takes you away from your true essence of who you are. That is the thing that takes you away from your voice of your intuition. And you may think, well, so what? Why do I need my intuition? The effortless flow. Because when you're on that effortless flow, that is a path leading you to different experiences for you to realize who you are. Who's heard the term that you're a spiritual being having a human experience, you're not a human being having a spiritual experience? Have you ever listened to the statement of that term, of that quote? You're a spiritual being having a human experience. You are not a human being. This is not who you are. You know, we think reality is the very thing that we're experiencing through our 5 human senses. Yes, that's our reality, but in actuality, there's a deeper reality, if you like. What are our 5 human senses? What we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we hear, what we touch. I'll come back to that story I was talking about with the car. Okay? My intuition is firing, it's flying. Okay? So they're your 5 human senses. What's your 6th sense? We have a 6th sense. What's your 6th sense? Spirit. It's your spirit. It's your intuition. But most people don't believe that to be real. Why? Because it's not tangible. Because you can't measure it. You can't prove it. You can't prove if it's real. Because it's not logical. We can't prove where electricity comes from. You have no problem in using that. No problem. You switch it on and you switch it off. That's the thing about intuition. You don't need to understand it. The truth is you won't understand it. Because where your intuition comes from, you cannot think that in human thoughts. You cannot understand it. You can just feel it. It's a feeling of knowing. So I was telling you the story before about why or which part of you is looking for safety in the plan. And it's the part of you that, as I said, it lacks connection with your intuition. And the plan is like sitting at night time on a country road. At night time. There's no lights. So you turn your headlights on. And when you turn the headlights on, you see 10 meters in front of you. Yeah? That's all you can see. Well, your let's call it your ego, all right? The part of you that doesn't use your intuition, okay, needs to see the entire road, needs to see where the road leads and around the bends before it has enough faith, it has enough knowing to follow that path. Does that make sense? But your intuition doesn't. Because your intuition lives in the moment. It lives moment by moment. And all it requires to see is the next 10 meters. Why? Because when you go to the next 10 meters, you can see the next 10 meters. And you go to the next 10 meters, you can see the next 10 meters. It's called living moment by moment. It scares the fuck out of people. It really does. It scares the shit out of people. Living moment by moment, because their safety comes from the future. But you think about this. You think about life and what it really means to be alive. You think about the people in your life, or you think about someone who's ever had a near-death experience before. Okay? Who knows somebody who's had a near-death experience or heard something from them? Most of us have heard different maybe interviews with someone who's had a near-death experience. If you ever listen to a man or a woman who's had a near-death experience, they always come back and their values and what's important for them completely changes. You know what it changes to? It changes to being with who they love, spending more time with who they love, doing only what they love, and living for this moment. Living for this moment. Who can relate to what I'm talking to you about? Yep. Okay? I mean, what happened when they had a near-death experience? Did they connect to something? Like, how did they realize that that is what life is about? You are continuously chasing this carrot that has been dangled in front of you. I mean, for me, that's what it was. And I've been in the business world for many years, for over 10 years. At the age of 22, I was on the verge of bankruptcy. My third business did very well, and I was successful in it. And my fourth business is doing very well as well, except I'm not a slave to it. I'm playing it completely differently. No plan, no agenda, no freaking goals. No goals. Like, hello. Is that possible? How can you not have goals? I'm not saying I don't get visions or feelings of the things that are taking place, but I don't search or seek them. They come to me. We look at the young generation. You look at the Y generation. Okay? What's important for the young? They get it. Because the older generation, it's all about building security. That's what we've been taught. But the young generation, they're going, hey, Dad, I want to do what I love to do, and I'm not going to do that other thing that you want me to do, because I don't want to do what I need to do, because I came here to do what I love to do. And then the dads or the parents are, well, you've got to think about the future. Fuck the future. I'm living for the moment. Can you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay? I mean, more and more people, like as we evolve through consciousness, it gets passed on, and the younger people now get it. They get what it means to be alive. And at the end of the day, isn't that why you're here? Isn't that why you have all those plans? Isn't that why you're trying to control, so you can finally get to a point of being alive and living and having freedom? But what if it was right here? What if it was in this present moment right now? If you're looking to arrive, because I know so many people, I've worked with hundreds of people. When I was in business in the past, I still am in business, but when I was in business in the past, I worked with millionaires and with billionaires, and I worked with people who are looking to arise, so all kinds of people. I was a promoter. I started within this industry as a promoter. I would be promoting motivational, inspirational speakers from America to Australia. And what I found is that whether it was the people coming to the seminars or the person teaching the seminars, they all had one thing in common. You know what that one thing is? Looking to arrive. This is what I'd realized. Because when I realized this, I said, I'm out. I don't want to play this game anymore. Because I can see where it was going. Whether they had $50 million in their bank account or had $10 million in debt. I could see where it was going. They're always looking for this moment to arrive. But this is what I realized. I realized that you're never going to arrive. Not in the future anyway. The only place you will arrive is here. So if you haven't arrived right now, you're never going to arrive. Yes.
I don't quite understand. What does looking to arrive mean?
I'm sorry?
What does that mean, looking to arrive? What does that mean?
What does that mean for you to arrive?
I suppose it's like to have your moment, or to be realised or something. Is that? Are you saying that billionaires, millionaires, and everyone is always waiting for a moment when it all comes together? Is that?
What I'm saying is that it doesn't matter how much money you have or you don't have. Everyone is still looking for the next thing. We're still looking for the next $1 billion. We're looking for the next wife. We're looking for the next car. We're looking, whatever it is. Okay? And what I'm saying is that your purpose and your happiness does not come from what you do. My point tonight is that your purpose comes from who you're being. Your purpose comes from who you are. And when you realize who you are, you then give purpose to what you do. What I'm saying and everything I'm talking about is complete opposite to what's being taught. Now, it's not right or wrong. It has nothing to do with that. But I know that some of you resonate with that and continuously, like I did, went down this path of thinking, well, I've got a plan, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to make it about the future, but you really didn't want to because your heart was saying no. Follow your heart. It's about now. It's about doing what you love, not what you need. There's two energies that we use continuously that makes up makes us whole. And those two energies, one is love, one is fear. Yeah? Love and fear. And when you continue to do the things that you need to do, because for me, it didn't matter how much success I brought into my life, I was still driven by need. The need to hold on to it. The need to control it. So you never arrive. Okay? So when you're driven by need, which energy do you think you're using? Love or fear?
Fear.
Fear. And let me tell you something. Heaven and hell is not a place you're going to go to, because there is no future, there's only now. Heaven and hell is here. It's your state of mind. It's who you're being. If you're coming from love, and I'm not being woo-woo here, okay? If you're coming from a space of love, and that is, love's essence is the present moment. You know, most people are always meditating, trying to stay present. But and that's very important. You know, I've done a lot of meditation myself. But the point is, they lose their presence when they go and do what they need to do. If you do what you love to do, anytime you've done what you love to do, what happens to time? It disappears. It's timeless. Because you're present. Because love's essence is presence. So yes, you can meditate, but if you just go back into what we call our real world is what we've got to do. I need to do this. You know, in other words, I need to come from fear. My state of being is fear. Then you lose your presence, and you can't live that. And a lot of spiritual teachers will say, well, you can't stay in presence. You have moments of it. I agree with that. But really, do we really come here for that? Do we come here just to have a moment of presence? I mean, every time I do what's true for me, and what's true for me doesn't have an agenda, okay? So it doesn't have a plan. I don't know if I've answered your question yet.
So are you saying, Amir, that it really comes down to change? And we have two types of change. We have a physical change or a chemical change. And a physical change is really temporary, because it's like taking water to ice and then it can go back to water. Whereas a chemical change is taking wood and burning it to ash. It's non-reversible. So if we can go through the chemical change, we can stay permanently present, rather than the physical change where we keep going backwards and forwards.
Man, that's a very heady observation. Sorry, Ronnie. So here's my question to you.
It's a good mate to have.
Why did you feel the need to say that?
To understand whether you're changed. So if we're going to get to a stage of being present the whole time, then it needs to become, as I was referring to, as a chemical change of something that we do, and then we can stay in that moment without needing to constantly try and change. Just be present with who you are at every single moment.
You know what will allow you to be present in every single moment is letting go of all these goals that you have. Do you know a lot of the goals are not even your goals? You know, I don't know how long I've got to go, but someone keeping me in time, or
4 hours.
15. Okay.
I'm wondering where commitment comes into it.
Oh, can I come back to that in a moment? Here's the thing. You know, we all have this sense of emptiness within ourselves. Yes? You know what I'm talking about. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about because you're so busy and you use that to avoid the emptiness. Okay, I'm not so busy. You know, I've got a family, I'm doing this, I'm running. Yeah, but it's just to avoid the emptiness. Okay? When we sit down by ourselves, I'm not talking about reading a book or watching TV. You know, I'm saying sit down by yourself, sit in nature and just stop. Just stop. You know, and the thing is, if you don't stop, life will make you stop. So that's why sometimes we create our circumstances to turn upside down, or the shit to hit the fan, if you like. Because then you're forced to stop and go, what the fuck? Like, really? Like, and then you feel, okay? Or you have heartbreak, or you have rejection, or you have failure. And then you stop and go, and you feel. So here's the thing. Most people, when they feel that emptiness, the moment they feel that emptiness, and that emptiness is just parts of yourself you haven't become whole and complete with, and within that emptiness is the truth of who you are, is your true power. It's just that your true power is being protected by this barbed wire electric fence, which we call the feeling of emptiness. If you wanted to transcend that emptiness, you've got to go deep into it. But our normal human response is to avoid emptiness. And the emptiness is maybe you associate it with loneliness, or being unsafe or being insecure. And the moment you feel that emptiness, you know what you do? You go into your head and go, if I drive that car, that will make the emptiness go away. If I bonk that chick, that will make the emptiness go away. If I go and give my time to charity, even, that will make my emptiness go away. That will make me feel more about myself. So what I'm saying to you is you create a goal that's not true for you because it has an agenda, and love doesn't have an agenda. It has an agenda to avoid feeling this emptiness. It has an agenda to make this emptiness go away. Who here, all right, has ever had a goal? And maybe it was a big business goal, or it was a big thing, they wanted to pull it off, and it was something of great importance, okay? And you put your blood, your sweat, and your tears into this goal, and the moment you achieved it, the moment you accomplished it, you felt empty. Put your hand up. Come on. Bullshit. Put your hand up. The rest of you are liars. Here's the thing. Why were you left with that empty feeling? You achieved this thing. You had a moment of, oh, awesome, kick ass, I did well. And then you're like, You had that emptiness come back. Why? Because you fed, it was that goal was fed with emptiness. So the moment you accomplished it, if you accomplished it, because when you have an agenda, you're more likely not to accomplish it. But if you accomplished it, you're left with the same damn empty feeling that you started with. Who then, on the flip side, has ever had a goal, an ambition, something that was true for them? It found them. You weren't looking for it. You were just in the shower, you were walking, riding your bicycle, whatever you're doing, and boom, oh, I would love to do that. An inspiration, an idea, you want to do something, you want to create something. And the moment you decide, I'm going to do that, who feels that you already feel fulfilled? Put your hand up. What's the difference? One is a goal that's not your goal. It's a goal that you created to avoid feeling that emptiness. One is a time where you are present in the moment and what feels true for you arises within you and you go, I'm going to do it. And you feel fulfilled and happy without achieving it. You feel, the moment you decide, I'm going to do this, you're just inspired, you have all this energy, you have all this creativity, you're in the flow. It's just all happening. What's the difference? One came from your intuition, from your heart. One came from here. You determined the one in your head because you were avoiding the emptiness. Let me give you one more story and I'll come back to your question. I run these retreats once a year. It's called the Oneness Retreat. And one of my intentions of running this retreat is for people to come along and experience the unplanned. The whole retreat, 4 or 5 days, the whole thing is unplanned. There's no script. There's no, we're going to do this in the morning. Like people rock up in the evening and then we have a welcome dinner and then we all decide what was going to happen throughout the day. Anyway, the last retreat I ran, because I want people to experience what the power of the unplanned. The greatest quote I ever heard was, humans plan and God laughs. But I remember we were actually in Kangaroo Valley Golf Course when I held the last retreat. And it was about 30, 40 people. And what I decided to do was give these guys an experience of the flow through golf. So what I said to a friend of mine, his name is Chris Parkway. He gave me this golf lesson, which he calls the magic golf lesson. He's actually a golf pro and trains people, but he if you like, he untrains the techniques so people can play golf through the flow, if you like. So I got the idea from him. So what I decided to do is, we were on the golf course. I said, who's up for golf? And most of the people were like, oh, I've never played golf. I said, doesn't matter. I just want you to experience something. Everyone went, fantastic, let's do it. Went to the golf, it was all unplanned. Went to the golf shop, the pro shop, and said, hey, can we use the golf course? They went, yep, great, we paid for it. We went out onto the golf course. We were just using the range, the part. We weren't actually playing, we were just having some shots. So what I got everyone to do is, everybody lined up, and they all had a golf club, and they all had some balls. And what I said is, I got them to be present. They all knew about the practice. They were present. They were using their senses, breathing, and they were being present. And what I would get them to do is just take some shots. But I would give them goals. I would give them targets. So I would actually stand in front of them. Like if you're taking the shot there, you would take the shot and you're just hitting, I'd say just hit my feet. So they'll be like, oh, okay. bang. And if they played, I mean, there was one girl that didn't even know how to hold the club. Like, so these weren't golf professionals. One girl was like, how do I hold the club? She was doing these ones. I said, I don't want to give you any instructions. I want you to follow your feeling. She's like, but I've got no idea how I'm meant to hold it. I said, well, why don't you just put it on the ground and pick it up how you feel? Puts it on the ground and picks it up the right way, right? So, you know, I would stand in front of them. They all take a shot, boom, hit the target. Take the shot, hit the target. I would keep going further and further away. And everyone had a different capacity, okay? Everyone had a different ability to focus. Everyone had a different reach, okay? And some people their capacity was this far. Some people, their capacity was, 20 meters. Some people, their capacity was 30 meters. And when they reached the capacity, what would happen is they started to force it. And the shots would waver off to different directions, okay? So what I said is, okay, so everyone had a point that they would reach to where the ball would easily get to. And then after that point, they had to you have to practice. You have to practice. You have to focus on the technique to get further. Does that make sense? So what I said is, I don't want to give you any practice. I don't want to give you any technique. What I'm going to get you to do now is I'm actually going to remove the target. I'm going to actually remove the goal, okay? And just to make sure you're not cheating, I'm going to get you to close your eyes and take the shot. And everyone was like, well, that's going to, obviously it's not going to get as far. Obviously I'm going to do an air swing, right? The girl that couldn't hold, her name was Finette, couldn't hold the club, her in particular. So what I did was I moved out of the way. I said, no more targets, okay? I got her to be present, just like the same process as before. She got present, and just before she was about to hit the shot, I told her to close her eyes. Guess what happened? When she closed her eyes and hit the ball. A, why do I got to close her eyes? Make sure she doesn't have a goal. B, because she can't think about the shot. Okay, I forced her not to think about the shot. All she could do is just take the swing. No measuring how far I should go, think about the shot. No plan, no structure, right? Guess what happened to every single person's shot? It tripled compared to when they had a goal. Tripled. Like, they would take the shot and they were like, they couldn't believe it. With their eyes closed, without a target. How many times have you achieved something or created some magnificent results in your life and it wasn't even a goal? Put your hand up. I did a consultation once with this guy, and I went to his office, and he was one of those law of attraction guys, and he had all the, behind him he had the vision board and all that kind of stuff, right? And he wanted to have this session about, why am I struggling with manifesting? I manifest bills, but I manifest checks, and then I manifest bills. I didn't want the bills. I was like, okay. And I said to him, so I'm having this session with him, and as I'm having this session, I intuitively felt led to look above it, on his right-hand side of his shoulder, and there was a check there. And I said, what's that? He goes, it's a check. And I said, what is it? He goes, I just check written to myself for $1 million. I said, why did you do that? He goes, because, you got to see it first. You got to see the target. You got to see the goal. You got to fake it till you believe it. I go, okay. So I have a question for you. Do you think the person who has $1 million does that? Does what? Writes a check for $1 million to see it. And he said, no. I said, why? Because he's already got the $1 million. So what the fuck are you really telling yourself? Do you understand what I'm saying? Your question was?
Just around being present in the moment.
Yep.
How commitment is kind of a condition set on how present you can be at certain levels. Not having a commitment to another person in a relationship. Because in my situation, let's say, I've got kids and I love kids. So a lot of times, if I want to be present doing what I love doing,
yep,
which I do a lot of the time,
yep,
there's still an element of commitment that I still need to provide.
Okay. Look, there is a very different level I can answer this question. If you want me to give you the deepest level, I will, and if you want me to give you a softer level, which it'll be easier to swallow, I can give it to you. Which one do you want?
I can go deep.
Okay, the only commitment that you have in this world is the commitment to yourself. Because there's no one else besides you. You are responsible not to those people, but to who those people. Let me tell you about one thing. I think the way, because I could put that out there and you'll be like, what? What do you mean there's no one else? Okay. What's that?
I kind of get what
you get it? Okay. But let me, for those who didn't get it, here's the thing. Here's the thing about love. And I'm sorry, we're men who are talking about love now, okay? But here's the thing about love. They say the way to a man's heart is what? Through stomach. Well, the way to a woman's heart is through the man's heart. You can only connect to a woman by opening your heart, okay? And you can only open your heart when you have self-love. So here's the thing. Let me tell you one story, and then I think I've got to wrap up. And I'll refer this to relationships, but you can refer this to anywhere of your life. You know, doing what you love to do and being the person you love and so on. As human beings, we've only got to the pinnacle, the tip of the iceberg of what love is, of unconditional love. We feel we have unconditional love for our child, okay? But let me tell you something about unconditional love. Unconditional love has no agenda, has no attachments. If you feel attached to any part of your child, let me assure you that there's no unconditional love yet, okay? We haven't yet, as human beings, got to the point of realizing what unconditional love is yet, okay? Here's what, if I was to put it in words, and you can't put it into words, because the moment I put it into words, what I'm actually feeling and describing to you is already changed, because words are a form of label and judgment. So you're getting a version of what I'm feeling right now within me to express to you. But here's the thing. A typical relationship, a human relationship, works something like this. An individual feels the emptiness within themselves, okay? And then they will go and seek, which is a part of themselves they haven't yet loved. They will then go and seek another mate, okay? A relationship. And they will find a relationship, an individual that will love the part of themselves that they haven't yet loved. And when that part of themselves they haven't yet loved, they will then feel loved, and they'll go, I love you. Do you understand? I love you because you're loving the part of me that I haven't loved. And when you love the part of me that I haven't loved, I feel loved. Okay? But that's not love, that's need. Because I now need you to love me like that. Does that make sense? Yeah. And when that person stops loving them, that part of themselves they haven't yet loved, guess what happens? You've changed. You've changed. Here's what true unconditional love, this is the only way it can be experienced. True unconditional love is when an individual has become whole and complete with all the parts of themselves that they feel empty about, all the parts of themselves that they haven't yet loved. And once you become whole and complete with all the parts of yourself you have not yet loved, and then you find another individual who's done that, and then those two individuals choose to be in that relationship, they can then experience unconditional love. See, this is the thing. Once you've found whole completeness within yourself, once you've found that, once you've realized that, you no longer need to be in a relationship. Do you understand? Yeah. Like, you do not need to be in a relationship. Now, I put this out there, and everywhere in the world, someone always go, hang on a sec. If you no longer need to be in a relationship, why would you then be in a relationship? Because we're so conditioned to doing only what we need to do. The moment you're free, the thought of being free from need cannot be conceived. They're just like, why would you be in a relationship if you no longer need to be? Because you love to be. You're no longer looking to become whole with the other person. So it's not the two energies coming together, and the masculine energies are no longer coming together to find completion in the relationship. True unconditional love is when an individual has embraced the masculine and energy within themselves and has become whole and complete within themselves and has love for the truth of who they are. And when you have love for the truth of who you are, you can see the truth of who someone else is, and what you're loving is not Ronnie. You're loving the truth of who Ronnie is, which is the same as you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It can't make it sense. I hope you felt that. Because your child could only be loved in an unconditional manner when you know who your child really is. And who your child is who you are. So really, the unconditional love is for yourself. But when I say for yourself, I'm not talking about this body. I'm talking about your true self. We said our sixth sense, our spirit, our soul. Thank you very much.
Has anybody got any questions for Amir? We've got some time to
Okay.
a few questions if anyone's got some.
Yep. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to ask a question.
Yep.
I've always struggled with intuition.
Yep.
It's something that I find really frustrating as a male when around women who talk about it.
Yep.
But what I'm getting from that is that when I'm doing what I love, it actually comes really easily.
Yep.
And when I'm actually doing stuff, like in the conditions in life, things I don't really enjoy, I'm not really being who I really am, I'm never going to find that intuition.
Yep.
So it really comes from doing what I love.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very clear. Thank you.
It's very spot on. Yep.
I've got a question. So, you have made money, lost money. I share the same surname as yourself.
Do you?
As your first name. And I met Eckhart Tolle and stuff. And when those things were happening, I feel the flow. What happens when you get out of the flow? And I know Australia and all Western countries say let's go to meditate and all. And you're saying that's the perfect setting a goal to twice a week meditate, and then get out and come back out of the flow. How do you feel being present when we're surrounded in a world that is so focused on the brain, ticking all the time? How do you...
By not being so concerned about the world, number one.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that means your attention is outside of you straight away. Okay? So you need to first bring your attention in within yourself. Okay? One of the biggest things that will take you out of the present moment is fear. Because fear cannot live in the present moment. Fear is something of when your attention is in the past and future. That's why it stands for false evidence appearing real, because the past and future doesn't exist. Okay? So the moment I'm experiencing fear, I absolutely guarantee you I've got an agenda. I teach people how to speak on stage or coach intuitively. It's one of the things I teach. And I can tell you, they say that the number one fear for human beings is number one, public speaking, and number two is the fear of death. Okay? So public speaking is number one. And I can tell you the only time I would ever get nervous or discomfort or feel uncomfortable for anything or experience fear before I get up on stage is if I have an agenda. Do you understand? So if I have a plan of what I'm going to say, I have a feeling because I spoke to Eloise and she told me what's going to be happening here, and then as she was telling me, I had feelings of what's going to come out. But then I didn't go and try to put that into a plan or structure of some sort. Does that make sense? I do PowerPoint presentations sometimes, but still I don't rely on the PowerPoint presentation. So what I'm trying to say is the only time I would ever get nervous before going up on stage is if I've got an agenda. And the moment I notice that is I just go, what's my agenda? Oh, well, I hope these guys like me. Oh, well, I hope they accept me. And if I can let go of the agenda, I'm back in the present moment. And there's no nerves whatsoever. You can feel the energy rising, but there's no nerves. There's no fear. So it's the same thing. I'm using the public speaking as an example. Okay, it's the same thing in your life. The moment you're experiencing fear, the moment you're experiencing not in the present moment, it's because you have an agenda. So ask yourself, what's my agenda? And the thing is, as you deepen your connection with the truth of who you are, the lesser your agendas will be. Because the truth of who you are doesn't have an agenda. The truth of who you are is an infinite being. An infinite being doesn't need an agenda. An infinite being doesn't need to plan. The only thing that was born and the only thing that dies is your ego. That's the only thing you gave birth to, and it's the only thing that dies, because an infinite being is not born, nor does it die. Yep.
You mentioned that you had a couple of businesses that maybe didn't go well, and then the third one I think that did. What was the difference? And if you take that as a sort of metaphor for what you're talking about, what, you know, like two.
Great question. Great question. My first two businesses, the very first business was a restaurant, and I was like 22. And the difference was I had no passion for restaurants. I had no passion. The very first day I opened, I was the barista, and I was getting training on how to make coffee. Why did I do that business? Because I wanted to become rich, and I wanted to become rich quick. That was my very first business. The second business was I had a mobile phone store. And the reason I did that business was because I was trying to recover from the first business. Does that make sense? Anyone heard of OneTel before? Yeah. I was a OneTel reseller, so I lost that. And that's when I started to really go and search and find what I really love. And what I really loved was helping people. So I started working within this industry. One of the first people that hired me was Ronnie, which I didn't know he was going to be here tonight. He was one of the first people that hired me into this business, the industry. And so I worked within this industry, and then I moved away from Ronnie. I started my own company, and I used to own a company called Global One Events. I was passionate about that. Okay, that became successful. I was making money. I paid all my debts off. On 22, I was on the verge of bankruptcy, as I mentioned before. So I paid all the debts off, but then within the success, I still found this emptiness, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, you know, I still haven't arrived. I got to this point when I'm living, you know, in this beautiful apartment, you know, at the Toaster overlooking the Harbour Bridge, you know, lifestyle, status, credibility, giving back to people, contributing, and I still felt not whole and complete. And then I was going, something's got to give. I didn't find my success, I didn't find my satisfaction or fulfillment in my failures. And I didn't find it in my success. So I was like, there's something missing. There's got to be something more to this. It's not why we came here. So then I went on pursuit of that, and that was another 2 or 3 years journey. But when I realized what I realized, I play the game completely differently now.
When you're speaking, how often do you hear yourself saying something completely new that kind of almost takes you by surprise that you've actually spoken about?
It's within the times that I'm most present, and it's most unplanned. Because the better of a speaker I become, the less I'm likely to get into the flow. So I have to push myself to, push myself is not the truest word, but I can easily fall into, you know, I've told this story, you know, but this is the thing, and I hope you can feel this. I'm sure you can. If you're connected with your feeling, you'll feel this. It's not what I'm saying that's making the impact, rather it's where it's coming from. So I could tell the same story if I'm not connected to the space that it's meant to be delivered from, then I will be bored of that story, and you will feel that. Okay, you will feel my inauthenticity. Inauthenticity means someone who's got an agenda. When you feel somebody is authentic, what you're realizing is somebody without an agenda. We think authentic is being good or being bad, or, you know, being right or wrong. No, it has nothing to do with that. Authentic means someone who's open, and someone who's open doesn't have an agenda. So in the moments when I am completely most authentic is when the greatest wisdom comes out.
Powerful original message I would say to you. On some other tangents with people like Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, you get into that, get immersed in that. You guys have heard the audio program that Eckhart does. It's a fantastic immersion for 7 hours. Great to do in a car on a long drive. Come out of the drive, absolutely convinced that that's the way to live. Get into the cut and trust of the day, the week, the month that rolls on after that.
Yeah.
You forget some of the message. Have you got any tips on staying, like the practice of getting yourself back into that? Like, it just seems like you get the message, you get into the now, you start to get into the flow, and then as the thrust of the day and the week and the months after that happens, It's just a continual muscle. You've got to keep exercising to stay on point.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think the greatest way for you to fast track that, okay, because most people are looking to fast track that journey so they can remember, is be okay with forgetting, because you got to forget to remember. Like, you came here to lose yourself so you can find yourself. Okay? You came here to... So the thing is, when you have these realizations, you're not going to hold on to it until it becomes deeper and deeper. So this process, okay, this journey is about having the realization, then losing it. Having the realization, then losing it. Having the realization, then losing it. So you go back and forth, and then as soon as having the realization, living the realization, being in the realization, losing it. Can you see what I'm saying? That's the journey. And you know, people are always looking for, you know, the next way they can become enlightened. But it's really, you know, for me, this journey has been, you know, everyone's always like, is there a moment that you just realized, you know, the truth? And I was like, no, there's been lots of little moments, and your realizations of who you are is like your hair growing. You know, you don't get up in the morning and go, oh my God, my hair grew by a millimeter. You don't notice it. But over time, you're like, oh my God, I don't react to that anymore. Oh my God, that's not important for me anymore. Things change, things evolve. It's just like your hair growing. But to answer your question is, let yourself forget. And be okay with yourself. Because what happens is we usually judge ourselves for forgetting. And then that judgment is the glue that imprisons you. Does that make sense? So the moment you judge yourself, then you make forgetting real. When you judge something, you make it real. Nothing of this world is real. The only thing that is real is the love that you came with and the love that you leave with. The only thing that is real is the very thing you came with and the very thing you leave. Nothing is real. It's just a big dream. That's the truth. And that's where I was going with that answer before. But your judgment makes it real. You trying to fix, improve, or change something makes that real.
I'm finding in my career, as I progress in that, I'm getting busier and busier with career, with other aspects of other commitments in my life.
Yeah.
Finding less and less time, and in some ways probably finding a sense of loss of the things that I used to be passionate about when I was younger. And I'm just trying to sort of get some insight from you as to how do you unlock yourself from falling into all these routines, commitments, careers, you know, responsibilities, and getting back into the real you.
Well, the thing is, the real you is you, and you already know what it is that you want to do. But we lack courage to make the decisions for what we love to do, so then we create all these things that we don't love to do. So, my advice always is, you know, start by looking at things that you're doing out of need and work backwards. And sometimes people go, I don't know what I love to do, I don't know what I love to do, because they've buried it with all the things they need to do, right? So start by letting go of doing some of the things you're doing out of need. I'm not saying go immediately let go of your job or something, but let go of, you know, I like to get up in the morning, you know, do something that's inspirational. You know, usually I like to get up in the morning and have a coffee, but I don't. Okay, well, get up in the morning and have that coffee. You know, start with the small things and start by working yourself backwards towards love by letting go of the things that you need to do. And you'll notice that you'll let go of bigger and bigger things, and as you continue to do that, it's like the muscle. As you continue to follow what's true for you, it strengthens. There's a great story of an American Indian, a chief, sitting down around the campfire telling children a story. And he's talking about this story about these two wolves that are continuously fighting within his body. And one wolf is fighting for what it needs or what it fears, and the other wolf is fighting for what it loves. And the little children turn around and go, Chief, which wolf wins? And he says, the one I feed. Do you understand? It's not, you see, your intuition is firing all the time. The question is, are you following it? Following it is the one you feed. You know, your heart is speaking to you all the time. But if your heart speaks, but then you go and make a decision with your head and say no, then you just fed the need wolf, the fear wolf. And that strengthens itself. And that becomes more dominant. So start by working backwards. Start by letting go. Notice, just start to notice that, hey, I'm doing this out of need. That is one of the greatest powers, is to become aware. Look at that. I am doing this out of fear. I am doing this out of a need. I've got an agenda here. I'm manipulating here. Just realizing that is power. Okay? And there's nothing you have to do. The mistake you make is then you start judging yourself. Oh, shit, I shouldn't be doing that. No, just become aware. Just observe and notice that you're doing that. That's all you got to do. The awareness is light being shined onto something that's been dark for a while. And over time, as you go back into unawareness or become unconscious, you come back into consciousness. You go back into, so it's a practice. It's a continual practice. And ultimately you get to a place where it becomes easier and easier to follow what's true for you, and you have more and more courage to follow a feeling that has no logical reason of why you should follow it.